Okay, so we'll just go ahead and say a small prayer and we'll start with the neurology. Let's close our eyes and ground ourselves. After all, we're talking about neurology. Let's ground that nervous system, invoking the energy of Lord Dhanvantari. Om Namami Dhanvantarim Hadidevam Surasurairvandita Padapadmam Loke Jararukbhayamrutyunasham Dhataramisham Vividhaushadhinam Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Right. So welcome. So before we start with the neurology, if you have attended my previous classes and if you have questions about any of the things that you have been practicing, I am more than happy to answer any of the questions that you have. I'm going to just mute you. But hi, Debanti. All right. So if you don't have any questions, then let's.
I have a question. I have a
Yes.
question. Fruit combinations it's the question that I have. I
Mhm,
know that technically you're not supposed to eat fruit anything before 30 minutes before and even after eating fruit.
mhm.
Are there any circumstances or any fruit that lend themselves a little better to combining or times of day or anything like that that's a little better?
Are you talking about with food?
Yeah,
With
combinations.
any food. So combining with lunch, essentially, lunch or dinner.
Maybe not lunch, but breakfast might be a little bit easier, because we're so used to like adding fruit to oatmeal, for example, things
Mm,
like that, which
mm,
I understand isn't a great combination, right? So
mm, mm.
do you have any suggestions or tips to either like which fruits lend themselves better to combining than others? And
I
are
would prefer that you do something like a dry fruit instead of doing something that is mucousy. Essentially, the reason you wouldn't want to eat fruit early in the morning along with breakfast because there's mucus in the universe and you don't want to add to that mucus. And that's essentially why we say. And the second thing is oatmeal digests in a different way and fruit by itself digests in a different way. And that's the second reason why you wouldn't want to. So if you want to include that sweet taste and you're used to that, I would prefer that you cook, like dates, raisins, figs, prunes, the dry ones, along with oatmeal. So you have the flavor and you have that fruity flavor that is actually a good thing to do rather than adding any fresh fruit. Now, if you really want to, like the sweet ones, pomegranates are okay. And, even if it's apple that you want, it's not something that Ayurvedic at all. But again, we are looking at practicality and you're used to doing things. And because you're used to doing things, if you want to, sweet fruit is okay to add. But again, this is not something that you want to consider if there is excessive kapha, if there is excessive mucus, if there is sinuses, congestion, cold, and anything like that. Stay away from it by all means. But to have fun, and when you go out and when you want to eat a fruit along with breakfast, sweet fruit is okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okie doke. So we can delve into our topic today, which is neurology, which is very, very close to my heart, only because there's so many conditions out there. I mean, ranging from migraines to multiple sclerosis to Parkinsonism to tingling and numbness and sciatica and so many different varieties that we're seeing day to day, and even seizures. So when we see those conditions, unfortunately, the only way in Western medicine is to give medicine in such a way that the condition progresses slowly, right? There is no way, unfortunately, to reverse the condition, not only arrest the condition, but reverse the condition. And I'm not saying that Ayurveda is like giving, can do miracles, can do this. Of course, it can do miracles, but I would say that this is a best kind of medicine, especially if you're going through any neurological condition, because in our first classes we did speak about the three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And we also spoke about dhatus, if you all remember. We spoke about all the tissues. We spoke about, there's plasma, there's blood, there's muscles, there's fat, there's bones, there's bone marrow. Notice that it starts with your plasma, which is very easy for you to access. But when it goes all the way to your bone marrow, it is so deep. And the accessibility to that area is very, very hard. So, because there's not a lot of formulations and medications in the Western world to reach that space, it's going to be difficult. Not only that, there are other kind of anatomies that are present in Ayurveda called Upadhatu. And this is not something that we spoke about, but I wanted to introduce this topic to you. Dhatu is like the building blocks that are present in the body. Upadhatus are like its associates, the tissues associates. These associates don't have like a main function that are doing, but they have an important function. They're like your ligaments, they're your tendons, there are your nerves, that are your arteries, your veins. These in Ayurveda we call them snayu, Kandara. I know I'll write this down just so that you don't, I mean, it's not necessary for you to know. I'm just giving you just so that it's cool for you to know this terminology. That's all. So it's just snayu, sorry, snafu. It's called snayu, S-N-A-Y-U. Kandara. These are all the things that are not accessible directly. If you have to access them, the only access to them is through your tissues, because they are only available as associate of a tissue. You cannot reach them directly. So any formulation or medication has to go through a tissue and then affect this area. That is why it becomes very difficult. You must have seen restless leg syndrome. A lot of times people cannot even control their own movements. There's movements that happens, tremors that happens, palpitations that happen. So all of these come under the purview of neurology, which we're going to talk about today. Now, quiz question for all of you that have been attending my classes. What is the dosha that is involved in movement? Any movement that is happening, what is the dosha that is involved? Debanti gets 100%.
Is it Vata?
It is Vata. Very, very good. Good, good, good. I'm glad that you're all actually focusing and learning something. I'm glad. Good. So it is Vata. So this Vata is responsible for the movement, the regular movement. But if the movement is not happening the way it is supposed to, it pulls everything from everywhere. Right now, everything that I have on my desk is all very clean. But if a very big gush of air comes in, it pulls everything. So that's the power of Vata that we have inside our body, that it can keep things in order if it is tamed well. If it is not tamed well, and if it gets angry, then it can pull everything out like Pitta, which is supposed to be present in your abdominal region. That's what we spoke about earlier. Then this Vata pulls that Pitta from the abdominal region because it's happening as a hurricane. And you will experience burning elsewhere, but you will not have digestive fire in your stomach to digest your food. It can pull kapha, which is a mucus, from everywhere in the body. And then you will experience that kind of, a lot of accumulation in different parts of the body. And this accumulation is a result of how you experience these kind of neurological conditions as well. So again, the moral of the story is Vata dosha, out of all the three doshas, is very, very important for us to tame. If we tame that, in Ayurveda, there is a Sanskrit shloka called Pittam Pangu, Kafam Pangu, Pangavo Maladhatavaha, Vayuna Yatra Niyante, which means Pitta cannot do anything by itself. Kapha cannot do anything by itself. Vayu is the one that is going to derange all of these. That is why it is very, very important for us to keep that air flowing in a proper direction. Now, if we don't do that, what is going to happen? There are two ways in which it gets deranged. One way is where there is a lot of depletion that is happening. You know, oh, we're used to working late. We're used to working out so much. We're used to not eating food properly. When we do things like that, where depletion is happening, with that, you are removing all of the necessary elements that are creating your nurturing, right? This is what vata does. Now imagine nervous system, right? In a nervous system, imagine a wire, a copper wire. Around the copper wire, you have all a good coating that you have around it, right? So imagine that this wire is vata. The electricity that is flowing through it is pitta. And the coating that is around this wire is kapha, right? Now, if you're not eating properly, you're depleted, what's going to happen? The first thing that's going to happen is the layer that is covering your copper wire, which is protecting and making sure that the impulses are supposed to flow in a right way, is going to be depleted. Now, what happens? Your copper wire is exposed. When your copper wire is exposed, that's what creates a shock. That's when you can experience shock. That's when there is tingling, there is numbness, there is pain, and all of this you can experience, because until then you have a shock absorber. You have that myelin sheath. I know I'm using this terminology. Uh, this is So this myelin sheath is what is around your nerves like this. Now, I am thinking that I want to deliver this lecture. When I have to deliver this lecture, I have to put all of these thoughts together. And those thoughts have to be traveling in a proper way. If the thoughts have to travel a proper way, then there must be connection from my brain to what I'm speaking. If the connection is lost in between, then I will not be able to deliver what I want, what I'm thinking. I can be thinking something and I can be saying something. So that connection is what we're talking about. And that connection is something that we have to preserve and make sure that it is working the way. Am I making sense? Is this I just wanted to make it very easy for you to understand. And so you must have known that there is, a neuron. Neuron is a cell of a nervous system. And this neuron is connected to another neuron, and there is the space in between these two neurons. So the chemical that releases, the thought that I have automatically forms like a chemical. And that chemical is transported from one neuron to another neuron. And this transportation has to happen seamlessly. And for that seamless transportation, we need vata, pitta, and kapha to be functioning the way they're supposed to function. Now, one way we have seen is depletion. Depletion causes blockage in the way of transmission of messages. When this transmission of messages is lost, that's when When Parkinsonism, you notice that people have tremor. They are not able to control because the neurons are firing they don't have a signal of saying stop. The firing is happening. And because of this firing, the tremors are happening uncontrollably. It's not in their control. Now let's talk about the next phenomenon. We spoke about the depletion phenomenon. There is a accumulation phenomenon. We all have a tendency. We're like, if we do something, we do more. Either that causes depletion or it causes accumulation. Accumulation is we eat more, we eat heavy foods, we sleep more, we don't exercise. So when all of this is happening, then that is causing accumulation. Sorry, who's this iPhone? Do you have a question? Okay, I'm gonna mute them. Okay. So this accumulation is something that, this neuron is passing, the chemical message is passing, but when there's an accumulation, then this chemical cannot pass through. When it cannot pass through, then it cannot relay the message. Then you will have stiffness or you will have numbness. You will also experience that steady gait where you don't even have what we call opposite of tremors, right? So that is an accumulation that is happening. So there are two ways that vata can cause neurological conditions. One is by depletion and another is by accumulation. So, when that is happening, it is important for us to understand all the causative factors that are responsible for these accumulation and depletion. Now, we spoke about the depletion causing causative factors. One very, very important topic, I know we spoke about dry foods, light foods, cold foods, excessive intermittent fasting, bulimia, anorexia. These are the things that causes a lot of depletion. Frequent snacking, eating several times a day, eating refrigerated or stale foods, eating foods that have preservatives in it, eating foods that are processed, or viruddhasana, which is more of the incompatible food combinations, smoothies, fruits with meals. These causes accumulation. And when you're also sleeping in the daytime right after you have ate your food. Now, these are all the things that will cause accumulation. So, when this happens, one important phenomenon that we have to remember is opposite flow of vata. We spoke about it in one of the classes. When accumulation is happening, so this is, I have a wire right here. The accumulation is happening right here. Then instead, when the vayu is flowing, it's flowing like this. Instead of flowing like this, because there's a blockage, it goes the other way. There's a rerouting of vata that happens. When that rerouting happens, there are very important energy centers in our body. These energy centers are called marmas. These energy centers are hidden, vital points in our body. They're 108 in number, 108 in number. Now, some marmas are called as Sadhya Pranahara Marma, which means the minute you touch them, you die. The minute this rerouted vata goes and hits that point, the person dies. There are three such marmas that are present in the body. One is in the brain, one is in the heart, and the other is in the navel area, which is in the basti area. There's a three that is present. No wonder we talk about stroke. When there's a stroke, person dies immediately. When there's cardiac arrest, people die immediately. So this is the phenomena that happens. And notice that these happens early mornings, or when there is a lot of constipation that you're not eliminating things, or you've seen people dying in gyms when people are working out excessive more than their capacity, right? So this is again not to scare at all, but for us to understand the phenomenon of how important it is to tame vata. Because what is happening, vata, instead of going in a proper direction, it has rerouted and it is touching different energy centers. Now, if it doesn't touch these three energy centers, if it touches a different energy center, it creates pain, it creates numbness, it creates tingling on that area. So that is how neurological conditions are going to be very, very sharp, fast, and strong. Now, we always think that we cannot predict these, and these are all very fast, and we cannot. I'll come to you, Debanti. I just wanted to finish this. This cannot be avoidable, is what we think. Remember all those days that you have worked out beyond your capacity. Remember all those days that you have stayed up because you had to finish a project for months. Remember all those days that you did not eat properly or did the opposite, all the causative factors that we have spoken about. Those are all the culprits that have led you to this situation right now. So you're vulnerable at this point. If all of those were taken care of from the beginning, then you're not going to be in this situation at this point. At this point, you're vulnerable. Yeah. So that is why Dinacharya is an extremely important topic in Ayurveda, where we talk about what is it that we need to do as soon as we wake up, what is it that we need to do throughout the day. All of that is very, very important so that we can avoid any of these conditions. Yeah. Yes, Devanti.
So I wanted to ask you about exercise because you talked about sort of excessive exercise, right? Um, and as someone who does, right, exercise, obviously, this is something that I wanted to sort of learn a little bit more about. And I guess in sort of Western strength training, if you will, right, the whole
Right.
point of it is to push yourself past capacity, right?
Correct. Right.
So that your capacity expands over time, right?
Absolutely.
Um, and so I just wanted to sort of ask you now, you've talked about sort of massage as an antidote to what we do as a workout typically. But could you talk a little bit about just during the exercise part of it itself? Like how, and I know you've also talked about the sweating, but sometimes you sweat, it's not always such a bad thing. And so like I guess how do you gauge what is depleting versus what is simply expanding your capacity?
Absolutely. Very good question. Now, we have, again, as a society, it is very important for us to push ourselves and do a little bit beyond our capacity. That has been our thing in anything, not just in exercise. In anything that we do, we want to push beyond our capacity. Ayurveda always talks about balance, never says go beyond. I mean, again, it is a tight rope that we're walking. Ayurveda talks about consistency. Consistency is very important. That is something that you must do. If you have noticed that you're consistently being sore, if you notice that you're consistently being depleted, during exercise, you'll feel well because all the endorphins and all the neurotransmitters and everything are released and you feel good. These are all the feel good things that are being released. But remember how your mental capacity is. If you're not able to think properly and if you feel like you're being depleted later on, then you're doing definitely beyond your capacity. So you have to be observing yourself how the tissues are and how you're rebounding back when you have a sickness, let's say, when you have allergies or any sickness, cold, congestion, any of these that you have, how are you rebounding back? If you're taking a long time to rebound, then your tissues are not strong enough. So, the main thing, I spoke about it in one of the previous classes, Sneha Saram Ayam Purushaha, which means the body's communication, all of these tissues are communicating with each other with lubrication. When you do your excessive exercise, you are depleting that lubrication, you are decreasing that lubrication. Then you're reducing the capacity of communication within different tissues. Then, if the communication is lost, then you have lost, right? So, it is balance is what Ayurveda talks about, which means you have to Ardha Shakti Vyayama, definitely. Yes, like you said, that if you are breathing from your, if you're having to open your mouth to take a breath, and if you sweat from your underarm or forehead, then you have reached half your capacity, then you must stop exercising, is what Ayurveda talks about. And that is what I follow for myself as well, to make sure that I am not doing, because what is your purpose? If your purpose is being a athlete, if your purpose is being, that is your profession, then yes, you can torture your body a little bit to achieve that. But if that's not your profession, if you're doing it for health, then why do you want to torture your body? Right? Sorry, I'm being very straight and honest in that question, because that comes as torturing the body. If you are a warrior, if you are protecting the country, then it is responsible for you to push your limits and then increase your body, because that is what you're supposed to do. And you have to take care of, doing abhyanga and eating properly, because you are pushing your limits. But if you're limiting your calories along with doing excessive exercise, then you're not reaching health at all. Because, like I said, myelin sheath that is present around the nervous tissue is important for communication. Your important organ called heart is always inside what we call avalambaka kapha, the pericardial fluid. If that fluid is not proper, it cannot be absorbing a shock properly. If you have to go through a concussion, God forbid, if there is concussion that happens, then the shock absorber, you have to have good amount of shock absorbing capacity. If that's not there, I just saw someone in the clinic today, a 15-year-old who's, from the past 2 years, there's a lot of sensitivity that she's developed because of concussion, and a lot of, sound. She cannot handle sounds at all, she cannot watch a screen at all. So all of your senses are being exposed because the shock absorbing capacity has reduced when the concussion happened. Again, so that is why Sneha Saram Ayam Purushaha. Lubricating yourself is very, very important. But if you're a warrior, if you're a soldier, if you are an athlete, if that is what your profession is, then you can push yourself by taking care of all the other things also, sleeping well, eating well, lubricating your body internally and externally while you do that. That is the long answer for the question. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it definitely helped. As a quick follow-up, then does so things like high intensity interval training, things like that, right? Like which are kind of meant to expand cardiovascular capacities. Ayurveda against all of those things.
I wouldn't say Ayurveda is against anything. Ayurveda is not saying we will take care of you, but you have to remember, when you do your um, high intensity trainings, then you're expanding your cardiovascular capacity, where you're expanding the vascular system. Then remember that you're increasing heat in your body as well. Remember that can increase inflammation as well. If the inflammatory markers are increased later on, that could be because of this as well. So again, Ayurveda, when if this is what you want to do, make sure that you do the dinacharya properly. Make sure that you do all of this properly while doing this as well. We speak about the antidotes as well, if this is what your main goal is. But as a normal person who is wanting to maintain your health, and that is what your goal is, then I would not prefer it. Again, this is my own preference. I would not prefer doing a high intensity activity. I would always prefer doing a medium intensity, maintaining that samatvam yoga uchyate, maintaining that balance. And so if you're maintaining the balance, then you don't have to do doubly that hard to do antidotes also. That is what my answer would be, and I think Ayurveda's answer would be that also, from what I have learned from there. Yeah. So coming back to neurology, that is the next phenomenon I wanted to talk about. It's very, very important, eye-opening for all of us. The terminology called udavarta. This is extremely important. This is what creates hurricane in our body. You know, natural suppression or forceful suppression of natural urges. There are 13 natural urges that happen in our body. If we forcefully suppress them, this urge is like a tide. It comes up like this. And when it is coming up, if you forcefully suppress it, then it's going to create problems in many, many different parts of our body, especially in the marmasthanas that we spoke about. The 13 urges are, the first one he speaks about is elimination of your feces, bowel movements. A lot of kids, they suppress their bowel movement urge when they go out and they don't want to use outside restrooms, and they suppress that urge. And you will be surprised that a lot of conditions that you see because of stopping this are similar to heart problems. A lot of different types of heart problems happen. Stiffness in the cardiac region happens, or cardiac pain happens, cardiac disorder, distress, weakness of sense organs, delusion, loss of vision. So these severe conditions happen just because of suppression of our natural urges. So this also comes under major menopause conditions in this too. Yes, we can talk about it next time by Jayanti. If we can talk about menopausal conditions, absolutely. So the first thing is stopping your bowel movement, urination. If you forcefully stop urination, flatus, flatulence, stopping flatulence can also lead to loss of vision. We spoke about how there is this urge that's happening, it's going like this, and then you suddenly stop it. Then, because of this force, it goes upwards, right? When it goes upwards, that's when it causes all of these problems. Sneezing. If you suppress sneezing, also, weakness of sense organs happen. Thirst, if you forcefully suppress thirst, cardiac pain. Hunger, if you forcefully stop that, debility or delusion happen. Sleep, if you forcefully, lot of us suppress our sleep over the weekend, because weekend comes, weekend is for fun, but delusion happens. Cough, a lot of these, when you're suppressing cough, cardiac disorder happens. Now, suppressing this can also be suppressing it with medications. If vomitus is happening and if you give anti-vomiting medications, then that is suppression also. If diarrhea is happening, and of course, if you have to protect the person, protecting the energy and protecting the person comes that's the main thing. But antiemetics, antidiarrheals, anti-cough medications, these also will act in the same way of suppressing. That's very important for us to remember. If you suppress emesis, when the emesis is vomiting, vomitus, that is happening, if it is happening because of, like food poisoning, let's say. And when the food poisoning happens, vomitus happens, it's a natural tendency where the body is letting go of all the toxins. But now you give antiemetic medications wanting to keep the toxins inside. then body is like, I cannot keep this here, and it moves it laterally. That's when you actually experience eczema. A lot of times, if you see this, and anti-emetic medications are taken, you will later on see eczema because toxins are being expressed in a different way. Antidiarrheals also, if you're suppressing that, it will be seen in a different way, where stomach pain, different things happen, right? And a cough, if you're suppressing cough, cardiac disorders can happen. Heavy breathing, if there is heavy breathing and you're stopping, I don't want to show people that I'm breathing heavily, then that also leads to cardiac problems. Yawning, when you stop, when you suppress this urge of yawning, also weakness of sense organs happen. When you suppress tears, cardiac pain and delusion happens. When you suppress vomiting, wheezing happens. So, these many types of suppressions that we do unknowingly, remember, can lead to many different kind of conditions, which is very important. And again, Ayurveda always talks about what is it that we need to do ahead of time so that we can prevent whatever is happening in the future. Yeah. So I'll stop here. If you have any questions, I'll take questions because it seems like I'm just going on and on and on. But I wanted to just see if I'm reaching you, if this is making sense, if it is not, and if you have any questions around this, I'll be happy to answer. Yes, Sucheta.
So my question is like what happens like sometimes you have like too much work and then there comes a point like too much yawning is just coming and coming and coming and you don't know what to do.
Mm,
I
mm,
mean like it happens to me every day
mm,
around 4 o'clock and
mm.
I will just go for a coffee or something just to
Yeah,
avoid and doesn't shouldn't look bad.
right, right,
So yeah, I
right.
want to
Absolutely.
know like what is that thing?
Very good question. That is food coma. When it's happening, maybe 4 p.m. is if you've eaten your food at 1 or 2, then
Mm-hmm.
immediately after that we have food coma, because what happens is all the blood is suddenly traveling to your abdomen and it's trying to digest the food. So I'll answer this question in two ways. The first thing is, this yawning is happening because of some internal condition that is happening right after you eat your food. Shatapauli, which is walking for 100 steps, is something that Ayurveda talks about, so that you're activating your digestive fire and you're allowing for your food to digest. Because if the entire energy is being used for your food to be digested, then you don't have, blood supply to your brain for you to think, right? That's why you're
Hmm.
experiencing this yawning.
Hmm. Okay.
So make sure that you walk for at least 15 minutes, 10 to 15, and you, again, it's not a brisk walking. You
Hmm.
just walk slowly for about 10 to 15 minutes after you have eaten your meal, and you get some herbal teas. It is okay for you to get some herbal tea, not a coffee. If you get herbal tea, which is a digestive, you can get like a chamomile tea, or you can get a ginger
Mm-hmm.
tea, tulsi tea, these kind of teas, which will allow for the food to be digested.
Okay.
And ideally, in Ayurveda, when you look at the Dinacharya Adhyaya, they speak right after you eat your food, you walk for 15 minutes and you sit down like a king. Because when you sit down like a king, you're actually allowing for the digestion to happen. So it's a natural thing that is happening. But because we're working, and that's the nature of it. So making sure that you drink herbal teas and making sure that you walk for some time, and observing if you're eating heavy foods, mucousy foods, and reducing that mucousy foods. These are the three things that you will do to make sure that the food is digested and you will not experience this. Now, if you're experiencing yawning and you don't want people to, you don't want anybody to be like, okay, why is Sucheta is yawning all the time? Then it is absolutely okay for you to get up and get like a coffee or get something so that you can shake it off. You're shaking
Hmm.
off that avarana is what we call. There's like a veil that is around you, and you want to shake it off and you want to allow to reach Yeah, that mind, because mind can only function if it is not blocked by something. Now it is being blocked, and you're just, coffee is allowing for that block to be removed. It's
Okay.
okay to do it in that certain conditions, but you wouldn't want to do that as a habit every day. And for
Right.
you not to do a habit, that's why you would have to take care of it ahead of time, where you're taking care of what you're eating, making sure that you're taking care of all the digestive part of it, post digestive part of it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Mm, yeah, dinacharya was not covered actually, Mamta, as we will surely do that. We have all of these topics. We'll do dinacharya also. That's very important.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Don't ask me if I do all of them. I don't. I have to be very honest.
Mhm.
There's only so much. But I do
Yes,
choose some of them. It is important that I choose some of them. Eat arising with the sun, and making sure that I eat heavy for lunchtime, eating my meals, my dinner sooner, going to bed soon. So those are all like the easy things that I'll also tell you, because I want to be practical also. If I
right.
if you have to follow dinacharya that is said in Ashtanga Hridayam, that's all you'll do. You'll not be able to work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Yes, Prabha, one second. There's a question here. How can one tell if a nerve issue is due to vata or due to nerve compression? Okay, so what is a nerve compression? A compression that is happening because there is expansion that is happening. There's vertebrae like this, and in between this vertebrae there is the gel, and this gel would have come out from its position. Instead of just staying here, it came out of its position, and it is now touching the nerve. It is now able to touch the nerve. So all the muscles that this nerve is sending all the information to are now affected, right? So that's what's happening. Now, because that is happening, it is absolutely due to vata, because it is not in it, the gel has changed its shape. For it to change its shape, it requires vata's help. Now, if we bring vata back to its position, then you automatically see that this gel that has come out will come back to its position and will not touch the nerve anymore. A lot of times, that's what we talk about in Ayurveda. Before you go for a surgery, a lot of times surgery is done so that this gap is created between the nerve and the gel. But if you don't look at the underlying cause, then the next gel will happen. No, there is more compression that will be happening in a different area. So underlying causative factor must be addressed, and most of the times it is because of vata only. And it can be because of undigested food and pachana, deepana, all of that must happen. Hmm? Good. Prabha.
Hi.
Hi.
So I think I have a continuous question based on
Okay.
the lifestyle.
Sure.
Uh, so I think for the last 10 years, I've kind of developed a passion, like
Sure.
slowly for like endurance sports, like running and swimming and cycling. And I kind of for me, exercise before that was always like going to the gym and running on the treadmill, and or I would get bored of it. And then now I've kind of developed a passion for exercise, and I've also like looked at athletes for inspiration, and like it's become like a lifestyle, right? A racing lifestyle that a lot of people in the US and around the world try to do. Like it goes in like signing up for races every year, and the training regimen kind of goes like peaks right 1 week before the race and
Mhm.
then comes down. And it has its own sports nutrition that goes
Mhm.
with it, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And now for the last few weeks, when I've been trying to adopt Ayurvedic diet
Mhm.
and incorporate meditations, I see this like extremes of
Yep.
I love being outside and I love exercising. At the same time, this makes me be more at home.
Mhm.
So there's like the balance. It's
Yeah,
really hard to find. So
absolutely.
is Ayurveda not in line with like Ironman lifestyle is what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely.
Are they like opposites?
Very good question. Okay. So you can be an Iron Man at one point of your life, but you cannot be an Iron Man throughout your life.
Okay.
You have to protect it. Again, balance does not mean that you stop the Ironman lifestyle completely and you just sit down at home and just meditate. No, you cannot be doing that also. Ayurveda talks about whenever you do anything, you have to do you have to reduce a quarter of what if you were swimming for 5 hours, now you swim for 3 hours. We're not saying you should not swim at all. That's not what Ayurveda is. Where you have to reduce it to an extent, because then mind is like, okay, I'm not worthy enough. I cannot do this. I'm associating with something. So you have to follow the Ayurvedic diet, which means you cannot be eating processed food. You have to be eating food that is enough for the amount of exercise that you're doing. And Ayurveda does, if you come, we have a conference that's happening March 7th through 9th, where we have a sports medicine panel where we will talk about what is it that the sports people and athletes will have to incorporate in their diet. And it's important. You have many ghees that we speak about. We have many lubricating foods that we speak about. And Ayurveda does talk about including meat also in the diet if necessary. Ayurveda is not against meat, right? If that's what you're doing. So, to answer your question, Prabha, if you were doing that much of a lifestyle, you cannot be going to zero at all. You have to reduce it to a quarter, which means you have to incorporate the lifestyle of doing meditation. And because if you're always on the go, you will not be balanced in that lifestyle at all. It's like you achieve an Ironman, then you want a double Ironman, then you want a triple Ironman, because that's what mind is about. Kama, krodha, lobha. This is what mind continuously wants something. Continuously is wanting to achieve something, not relishing what we have, but constantly, what else can I get? What else can I get? That is something that we have to get attention to, pay attention to that one. And then slowly reduce this to a quarter and see how you're feeling in your mind and body. And then maybe you can reduce it to half. And maybe that is what your balance is, and that's when you can stay. You can continue to do that. But Ayurveda never talks about extremes at all. You should not do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And I do have a follow-up question with respect to just balance.
Okay.
Like with food and like meal planning,
Mm-hmm.
the minute it's like weekend, Thursday or Friday, or friends visiting, or you start
Mm-hmm.
eating outside,
Mm-hmm.
or do you still not feel like, oh my God, I'm not eating home cooked food, I'm getting thrown off, or the mindful eating just gets completely thrown off, and then it becomes difficult to keep up with the diet plan.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you find a balance with even the meals and allow for eating outside?
So when you're eating outside, nobody asked you to not be mindful. You can still be mindful even though you're eating outside. I go out. I never say that I'm eating only 100% home cooked meals. We had, a team lunch today actually, and we bought food from outside. And but being mindful with enjoy the flavors that you're experiencing. It's not like when you're ordering out does not mean, of course, the prana is going to be less, of course the life force is going to be less. We know that. But you can still be mindful when you're eating it, and you can be sipping on herbal teas and then get back to your routine. If you beat yourself up that you want to be this perfect person where I want to be eating only 100% home cooked meals, oh my God, I'm guilty. I shouldn't have eaten this. I shouldn't have eaten this. That guilt is being digested with the food that you're eating. And that guilt is going to be making your tissues. And this will continue on, that will not allow for you to start your own routine as well. Right? So,
Okay. Yeah.
making sure that there's a balance. And then I'm not saying that you indulge in it and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days you eat out. That's not what I'm saying. When you are with friends, I mean, I have teenage boys myself. My teenage boys have to go out, and when they go out, they eat with friends. Of course, we have to have that kind of a balance. But when you go out, what is the kind of food that you're eating? Being mindful, am I eating beyond my capacity, or am I eating only half my capacity? Am I eating it with herbal tea? So these are all the things that we have to incorporate.
Breaking.
Yeah,
And how do you optimize your lunches? Like when you go to the office or like packing boxes,
we'll
uh,
talk about it.
full
Let's
food.
answer other people's questions. We have other people raising their hands, and we'll talk about them as well. Shalini, you've been patiently waiting.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, you had a question?
Yeah, I wanted to know if you could mix allopathy
Oh,
medication
yes,
with.
yes, yes. So, okay, that was your question. Allopathy and Ayurveda. Okay, that's a very good question. A lot of times when people come to me, they're already taking an allopathic medications, and as an Ayurvedic practitioner, I am not allowed to ask them to stop their medication. It is not and if they're taking something, especially for anxiety and depression or asthma or any chronic conditions they've been taking for years together, the body is used to it. The same thing that I was answering Prabha, you cannot be stopping things immediately.
Mm,
So what we say is we give different routes of formulations. We give either externally, or we karna purana, instilling into your ears, instilling into your nose, different ways of formulations we have, or we separate it. Allopathic medications are taken in the morning, Ayurvedic medications are taken in the evening, and then later on what happens is you still follow up with your allopathic doctor. If your symptoms reduce, your A1C reduces, let's say, your cholesterol reduces, let's say, then
mhm.
your allopathic doctor itself will say, oh, good, my medications are working, let's reduce this, right?
Okay,
So that
yes.
is the way that we always look at, and it is absolutely okay to. I mean, I'm not saying that you will mix them both and take care of the situation, but if it is a chronic condition and it is a chemical receptor that this allopathic medication is going and attaching to, and your receptors are used to it, now suddenly you cannot take the dependency like that.
Okay. No, so these are lifestyle allopathy medicine. And I was specifically asking Ayurveda medicine, Chandra Prabhavati. So that was the mix I was trying to see if it is safe or not.
Again, it will be difficult for me to say, Shalini, because I don't know the situation. And
Okay,
Chandraprabha is used for many, many different conditions. And
okay.
without knowing the conditions, it would be difficult for me to blatant. I mean, just give blanket statement. I don't want to do a blanket statement like that.
Yes, I agree with you. I
Yeah,
agree with you. Thank you so much.
absolutely. My pleasure. So, Cheta, was your hand uh, turned on from before, or you had an?
Yes. No, I'm good. I don't have any
Okay,
question.
okay, very, very good. Okay, so if nobody has any questions, we can go back to Prabha's question.
Yeah, the question was more on on the weekdays with
Yeah,
like commute to the office or like going to
yeah,
the library and a hot home cooked lunch,
yeah,
packing in boxes. That also requires a lot of effort. So do you have a recommendation on meal prepping those lunches ahead of time, like
absolutely.
small pulled boxes?
Absolutely. Planning is important. When my son went for internship in summer this year, he was the only one who was carrying dabba in his office, and people were like looking at him, You're carrying a dabba." I said, no, be proud of yourself. You're introducing something new to people, right? Because that's not something that the tiffin box concept is very, very, it's gone almost. So, yes, this also requires discipline. Discipline is the most important thing because we have to plan for it during the weekend. What am I, if you don't have, you know, people are each one of us is different. How do I do it? Over the weekend, I want to make sure that I have all the meals covered. Do I have groceries that are necessary for the entire week? If I don't have groceries, then I cannot cook what I want to. So I'll make sure that I have the groceries that are necessary for the entire week. And I do meal prep in the sense cutting vegetables the night before. And I make sure that I know what is it that I'm cooking the next day. If I don't, then in the morning it's not possible. So I wake up, the first thing that I do is we have four stoves here, and we just put everything together and make the meals. Whatever I prepare for lunch is what I eat for dinner. I am not able to make two meals for myself and family. So I just make one meal, which is lunch. Now, whatever is made for lunch is eaten for dinner.
Okay.
So again, yes, discipline is needed, and you need to know what is it that you're cooking so that you have your grocery list available.
And do you also do cold foods, like like something that does not require microwaving?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understood you.
Like foods that usually you would eat it hot, but it's okay to eat it cold, like without the need for a microwave. Like I've seen people do like stainless steel and
So
not
you've taken it, you've taken the dabba and it came to room temperature. Would you eat room temperature food? So we have a thermos. I put it in the thermos so that the heat retains in there.
okay.
Yeah. Invest in a thermos. That's going to be good so that the heat retains.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. All right. So if this is it, I'm so glad that Christy, you joined all the way from Texas. It's already 9 p.m. for you. So thank you so much for joining, all of you. I hope that this has been, I mean, I enjoy teaching and I enjoy telling all of these concepts because a lot of times when people come to me into the clinic, they're like, oh my God, really? Oh my God, really? They don't know all of this information. And that's why I thought that it's good to be saying snippets of information every month. That way it goes into us and it allows us to be able to practice whatever we're practicing. So I really thank you all for joining. If you were not there, then I wouldn't be speaking to anybody. So especially I want to shout out to Debanti because you've been my hero. You've been joining all the classes and cheering me. So thank you so much for joining and cheering me. By Jayanti also. Thank you for joining, all of you.
Thanks for having us. It's coming to class over and over just reminds me how many things I'm not doing for the most part, but it's helpful to have a reminder.
And remember, I'm not perfect as well. And that's exactly what I want to tell everybody. That I only can do whatever I can do. And that balance is also important. That having fun is also important. Yeah. Very, very good. Thank you so much for joining. So we will, Mamta, you had a question?
No, no, no. I just wanted to say thank you.
Yes, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you so much for joining.
How can I this is my first time, how can I get into your Zoom classes?
Oh, how did you get this Zoom class, Shalini? I have a newsletter and I send it out via my newsletter.
I was recommended by a friend and then you sent me Zoom.
Oh, okay. Then you will probably do me a favor. I'll put my email address here. So you
Okay.
can send me your email address and I can add you to my mailing list.
Yeah, that would be really nice and be able to. I felt like I learned a lot.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Let me get your email address.
Yes.
Ayurhitam. Let me write it down.
Neurology conference. Am I eligible to join from Texas? So, Christy, there are two things that's happening. I'm actually teaching a neurology class right now. It is a integrative neurology class. We have a lot of doctors and dentists and Ayurveda doctors. So this is mainly for the practitioners itself that I'm teaching. And you can absolutely join that one. We have done 5 classes are done. We have 4 more classes. You can listen to the recording. The upcoming conference is happening March 7th through 9th. And this is a 3-day conference where we're bringing all the world-class speakers from all over the world, from Europe, India, and here in the United States. You can absolutely join online as well. And if you all bear with me, I will find the link and I will paste the link right here so that you will be able to find all of that information and join if you're interested right here. So you can copy paste that link and you'll be able to see all the speakers that are coming. And those of you that are in the Bay Area, you can join us in person. And those of you that are online, you can join us online. Yeah. Good. So maybe Dinacharya next time then? Let's do that. Let's do Dinacharya. And by Jayanti, we'll do menopause also. We'll do that next the month after that.
So, okay, 1 minute. So it's
Yeah.
once a month then.
Correct. We
Oh,
do it
thank
once a
you.
month.
I got lucky.
Yes, we do it once a month.
Thank you.
Yes.
I put in one last question on the chat on sleep. You mentioned suppressing sleep,
Yeah.
also called yawning.
Yeah.
Noticed sometimes I'm 8:45 p.m. I am sleepy, but then I'm doing something, and then it becomes 11:30 p.m. and this routine gets out of whack.
Yeah, that is important. Maintaining your body should have that routine. Your body should know that this is the time Prabha goes to sleep. This is the time. So you have to create that routine. If I tell you today, go ahead and do an open heart surgery. Tomorrow, code. Day after tomorrow, go teach kids. Will you be able to do? You will get better at one thing. So your body also will get better at one thing, which means you want to create that routine. Your body should know that 8:45 p.m. or 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. is what Prabha goes to bed at. So that again goes back to that discipline of, I mean, generally keeping at least that, like 9:30 to 10:30 window or 9 to 10 window, making sure that you have that window. When I ask you, what time do you go to bed? 9 p.m., 10 p.m. That's something that your body should know.
Okay.
Yeah. Christy, yes, past classes are available on my YouTube. My YouTube is not the greatest, but I will go ahead and send you that link as well. Yes. All right. So having said that, it's 7:02 p.m. We will meet again next month with a new topic. Thank you all for joining. All right. Bye.